Welcome back, students. In this video, we are going to see 3 different experiments done by scientists at different times for the search of a molecule which is involved in heredity. In 1928, Frederick Griffith, in a series of experiments with Streptococcus pneumoniae, a bacterium which is responsible for pneumonia, witnessed a miraculous transformation in the bacteria. During the course of his experiments, the living bacteria had changed in its physical form. When Streptococcus pneumoniae bacteria are grown in a culture plate, some produces smooth colonies which are denoted as S strains, while others produce rough colonies which are named as R strains. This is because the S strain bacteria has a mucus polysaccharide coat while the R strain does not. Using these two strains of the bacteria, Griffith conducted his experiment on mice. First, he injected the S strain and R strain bacteria separately into the body of the mouse. The mice infected with R strain do not develop pneumonia, but the mice infected with the S strain die from pneumonia infection. Here are the results of the first step of his experiment. When S strain was injected into the body of a mouse, the mouse developed the symptom of pneumonia and it died. And when R strain was injected into the body of a mouse, they never developed the symptom of pneumonia and they survived. The next step, Griffith was able to kill the bacteria by heating them. So he observed that the heat killed S strain bacteria injected into the mouse did not kill it. But when he injected a mixture of heat killed S strain with living R strain, the mice died. Moreover, he recovered living bacteria from the dead mice. Here is the result of the second step of Griffith experiment. When heat killed S strain is injected into the body of the mice, they live. They never develop the symptom of pneumonia because it is heat killed. But the same heat killed S strain, if it is added with the living R strain and injected into the body of the mice died. They developed pneumonia. Here is a simple way to understand Griffith experiment, students. Look at the picture. The mouse injected with S strain, that is its virulent strain, caused pneumonia in the mouse and the mouse died. When the R strain, that's a rough strain, which is non-virulent, injected into the body of the mouse survived. It never developed the symptom of pneumonia. But in the next step, he heat killed the S strain and injected that into the body of the mouse. The mouse survived. It never developed the disease. But the same heat killed S strain combined with the living R strain injected into the body of the mouse developed the disease and it died. From the above results, Griffith concluded that the R strain bacteria had somehow been transformed by the heat killed S strain bacteria. Some transforming principle transferred from the heat killed S strain had enabled the R strain to synthesize a smooth polysaccharide coat and become virulent. This must be due to the transfer of the genetic material. However, the biochemical nature of genetic material was not defined from his experiments. In the next experiment, Oswald Avery, Colin McLeod and Maclean McCarthy These three scientists worked together to determine the biochemical nature of transforming principle in Griffith experiments. They purified different biochemicals like protein, DNA, RNA, etc. from the heat-killed S cells to see which one could transform a live R cell into S cell. They discovered that DNA alone from S bacteria caused R bacteria to become transformed. They also discovered that protein digesting enzymes and RNA digesting enzymes did not affect transformation. So the transforming substance was not a protein or RNA. Digestion with DNAs did inhibit transformation, suggesting that the DNA caused the transformation. They concluded that DNA is the hereditary material, but not all biologists were convinced with that. Here is the experiment of Oswald Avery, Colin McLeod, and McLean McCarthy. They did that in 3 steps. In the first step, they took the heat-killed S cells and remove all the other biomolecules from that, and only protein, RNA and DNA remain. That's the first step. The second step, they have treated this solution with 3 different enzymes which can destroy these 3 molecules. Proteinases, which can destroy protein, RNAs, which can destroy RNAs, and DNAs, which can destroy the DNA, to confirm which one is showing transformation. So they treated the solution, which is heat-killed S solution, with these enzymes in 3 different steps. So in the first step, they have added proteinases, so there is no protein there, and that solution is added to the culture of living R cells. And next, the solution is treated with RNases, so there is no RNA. Now that solution is also added to a culture of living R cells. And last, they have added the solution with the DNAs, so there is no DNA now. That is also added to a culture of living R cells. Now when we see the results of all these experiments, in the first one, when there is no protein, you can see there is the formation of S cells, appearance of S cells. Nothing but you can say the transformation of R cells into S cells has happened. In the second one, where there is no RNA, there also you can see the R cells are transformed into S cells. And coming to the last one, where there is no DNA, you cannot see any transformation in the R cells into S cells. Only R cells were seen. So this concluded that when there is no DNA, there is no transformation. But when there is no RNA, there is transformation. When there is no protein, there is transformation. So these two cannot be a genetic material. Only the DNA can be a genetic material. Like that they have confirmed. The next experiment, what we are going to see, is the Hershey-Chase experiment. The unequivocal proof that DNA is a genetic material came from the experiments of Alfred Hershey and Martha Chase in 1952. They worked with viruses that infect bacteria called bacteriophages. For this, you need to know about the life cycle of the bacteriophages. The bacteriophages attach to the bacteria and its genetic material then enters the bacterial cell. The bacterial cell treats the viral genetic material as if it was its own and subsequently manufactures more virus particles. Hershey and Chase worked to discover whether it was protein or DNA from the virus that entered the bacteria. They grew some viruses on the medium that contained radioactive phosphorus and some other on medium that contained radioactive sulfur. Viruses grown in the presence of radioactive phosphorus contained radioactive DNA but not radioactive protein because DNA contains phosphorus but proteins does not. Similarly, viruses grown on radioactive sulfur contained radioactive protein but not radioactive DNA because DNA does not contain sulfur. These radioactive phages were allowed to infect E. coli bacteria. As the infection proceeded, the viral coats were removed from the bacteria and the viral particles were separated. Here is the diagram of the Hershey-Chase experiment, children. You can see the viruses grown in two different media. See, this is the virus, bacteriophage, grown in radioactive sulfur medium. And since sulfur is an integral part of a protein, you can see the protein coat of the virus is radioactive. And when this is allowed to infect a bacteria, the DNA of the virus enter into the bacteria and replicates. Coming to the next one, the virus which is grown in a radioactive phosphorus. Since phosphorus is the integral part of the DNA, this radioactive phosphorus will be integrated into the DNA of the virus. And when this virus is allowed to infect a bacteria, the DNA, which is now radioactive, will enter into the bacterial cell. That is the first step. So infection happens in the first stage and the DNA of the virus which entered into the bacteria starts multiplying. And in the bacteria, since it is the DNA entered from the virus into the bacteria, you can see the bacteria which is having radioactivity because of the DNA molecule. But here in this case, you don't see any radioactivity because the radioactivity is present only in the protein coat, not in the nucleic acid of this bacteriophage. So from the result, you can confirm that it is the DNA which is transferred from the virus to the bacteria and not the protein. Here are the results of Hershey-Chase experiment. Bacteria which was infected with viruses that had radioactive DNA were radioactive, indicating that DNA was the material that passed from the virus to the bacteria. Bacteria that was infected with the virus that had radioactive proteins were not radioactive. This indicates that proteins did not enter the bacteria from the virus. So they have concluded that DNA is therefore the genetic material that is passed from the virus to the bacteria. From Hershey and Chase experiment, it was proved that DNA acts as a genetic material. But in some viruses, RNA is also acting as a genetic material. So here comes the question, why DNA is the predominant genetic material in living organisms? Before getting into that discussion, let us see what are the properties of a genetic material. A molecule that can act as genetic material must fulfill the following criteria. 1. It should be able to generate its replica. 2. It should chemically and structurally be stable. 3. It should provide the scope for slow changes that are required for evolution, nothing but mutation. And 4. It should be able to express itself in the form of Mendelian characters. I repeat the characteristic feature of the genetic material, students. it should know how to replicate, it should be stable chemically and structurally, it should allow slow changes, nothing but mutation, and it should express itself. So these are the major four characters of a material which is acting as a genetic material. Why DNA is the predominant genetic material? Let us examine each requirement one by one. First one, because of the rule of base pairing and complementary nature, both the nucleic acids, that's DNA and RNA, have the ability to direct their duplication. The other molecules in the living systems, such as protein, fail to fulfill this first criteria itself. Secondly, the genetic material should be stable enough not to change with different stage of life cycle, age, or with change in physiology of the organism. Stability as one of the properties of genetic material was very evident in Griffith's transforming principle. This now can easily be explained in the light of the DNA that the two strands being complementary, if separated by heating, come together when appropriate conditions are provided. The presence of thymine at the place of uracil also confers additional stability to the DNA molecule. Further, the 2-OH group present at every nucleotide in RNA is a reactive group and makes RNA labile and easily degradable. RNA is also now known to be catalytic and hence reactive. Both DNA and RNA are able to mutate. In fact, RNA being unstable mutate at a faster rate. Therefore, DNA chemically is less reactive and structurally more stable when compared to RNA. Therefore, among the two nucleic acids, the DNA is a better genetic material. Here is a simple diagram to remember the differences between DNA and RNA, children. You can make out DNA, it is a double-stranded molecule, and RNA, generally a single-stranded molecule. This is the first difference. Coming to the second difference, the type of sugar which is present there. In DNA, it is deoxyribose sugar, but in RNA, it is ribose sugar. You can see in the RNA, 2-OH group which is reactive, which makes them so reactive. That is why they are not acting as a genetic material in most of the living organism. But in the same place, DNA is having a H group only. The third difference is the nitrogenous bases. The bases present in DNA are thymine, cytosine, adenine and guanine. But in the case of RNA, instead of thymine, uracil is present. So the bases seen here are uracil, cytosine, adenine and guanine. These are all the three major differences you see between DNA and RNA molecule.